Good morning, Allendale. And let me thank Pastor Andy for this invitation. I am delighted and honored to be here today. I see two of my colleagues here today, Nick and Dylan. They have heard this story. You're going to hear it again. But I appreciate the invitation, and I must say, everybody has been so welcoming to me and to my godson who is with me today, Joshua Bivens. Would you stand up, please? I told them that I had to come to St. Pete, and I said, you know, I'm an old lady, and I sure don't feel like driving. He said, when are we going? So I just appreciate him being here with me. My task is to tell my story as to what happened to me in this great state of Florida. I am a native of Florida. My parents moved to St. Augustine. My mom was a school teacher, and my dad was a minister. And my dad was the president of the NAACP. When we moved to St. Augustine in the 50s and 60s, my dad felt that if St. Augustine is the oldest place in the United States, it ought to be a model for the country. We were in segregation, was at its height at that time, and my dad said that nothing was being done in terms of the black community, which was segregated in terms of resources. So he would go to school board meetings, he would go to city council meetings and said, you are not doing anything for the black community. There's no way for the kids to play after school. There are no resources. The schools are not up to par that blacks have. So Dad continued to complain, and he was labeled a troublemaker. The powers that be told my dad, if you don't stop complaining, it will affect your family. My mom was a reading teacher, and she was considered one of the best reading teachers in the county. Well, Dad continued to say, you are going to begin to treat black people fairly in St. Augustine. Well, Mom went to work one day, and the principal called her in, and the principal said, Miss Wright, you are by far the best reading teacher we have, but because of your husband's activities, today is your last day. So Mom lost her job in St. Augustine. And she was frustrated. It was 4 children, and our house was accustomed to 2-parent family, and both of them working. So Mom had to go and find another job. She went to Bunnell, Florida. Bunnell is probably about 35 to 40 miles from St. Augustine. So it interrupted our family quite a bit because Mom had to get up very early to be in Bunnell by 8 o'clock in the morning. She said to my dad, you need to stop the civil rights activities because I don't want to lose this job again. My dad totally ignored her. He continued to go to school board meetings. He continued to go to the commission meetings. He continued to go to the mayor and complain. So that job lasted about a year and a half. The principal called her in again and said, Miss Wright, you are by far the best reading teacher that I have, but because of your husband's activities in St. Augustine, the school board has indicated today would be your last day. So Mom lost her second job. She was frustrated. She went home, she told my dad, if you don't stop all of this civil rights activities, I'm gonna take my 4 children, we're gonna leave you here, and we're gonna leave you to fight the cause all by yourself. We have to leave St. Augustine. So my dad went to try to find another place that he can be a pastor. Before he left, He and a dentist that lived there, Dr. Haling, said that St. Augustine is just so toxic. They were just so unappreciative to African Americans that something had to be done. So Dad wrote a letter to Martin Luther King asking him to come to St. Augustine to see if they could make any changes in the culture of St. Augustine. Before we left St. Augustine, Martin Luther King did come, and things got worse instead of better. So my dad fortunately found another place to pastor, and that was in Gainesville. But before we left Gainesville, the Ku Klux Klan wanted to make sure that we knew who they were. They built a cross and burned it in front of our house. I was very small, but I'll never forget when that happened. During those times, the beds were made real high, and so my brother and I went under the bed that time, and all we could see was the fire coming from the cross. It appeared that the fire was in the house because it was blazing so high. And my brother and I, as we were under the bed, we said that we were our best friends, we were each other, and we felt that that night that we would die. Well, my dad called the deacons from the church to come and put out the fire. He knew he could not call anyone from the fire department or the police because they too were Ku Klux Klan's members. So they put the fire out, and my dad assured my mom that we would be moving. We moved to Gainesville, Florida by night. When we got ready to move to Gainesville, my mother instructed that we all were in the car, that we would lay down in the car. In case the Ku Klux Klan was following us, they would see nobody but my dad. So we stayed on the floor of the car until we were well out of St. Augustine, and we were safe in going to Gainesville. When we got to Gainesville, my mom asked my dad, "Promise me that you will not join the NAACP. You will not have anything to do with the civil rights struggle, and we will live like normal human beings." My dad promised. I'm not going to do that anymore. We are just going to build this church, and we're going to have more members come as we're in Gainesville, and we're leaving St. Augustine behind us. My mom gets another job as a reading teacher. She's doing well, we are doing well, and one day we decide we're coming into church, and the lady stops my mom as we were going in. She said, "Oh, Miss Wright, we are so delighted that y'all have moved here, and we are so delighted that Reverend Wright is president of the NAACP." She said, "We are going to turn Gainesville upside down." My mom was livid. Mom was about 5 feet, and she was very fair, and Mom turned purple right in front of me. She was upset. She couldn't wait till church was over. When church was over, she told my dad, "You promised me you would not get involved with the NAACP. You promised me that we would live like normal human beings." Dad said, "I'm just going to do this for 1 year." 1 year turned into 18, but he told her, "I'm going to do this for 1 year, and after 1 year, that's all I'm going to do." So Mom was really skeptical that she would lose the third job. So Dad, here we are. He's president now of the NAACP again, and he's trying to see what it is in Gainesville that he needs to address. This is 1964. Brown versus the Board of Education was 1954. 10 years have passed, and in the school system is still segregated in Gainesville. So Dad goes to a school board meeting, asks them, when will you integrate the public schools? And the response was, it might be 10, 15 years from now. We're not going to do anything right now, and we are not going to adhere to what the Supreme Court has said. So Dad said, very well, thank you. So the NAACP, along with my dad, sued the Alachua County School Board, and the judge said that they had to integrate with all deliberate speed. So my dad had to come up with the plan. How do we integrate this public school system? Well, his strategy was, I'm going to start at the high school, because if I start at the high school, I have a graduation the very next year. So he had to find parents that would move their kids from the all-black school and let them go to the all-white school. He knocked on about 500 doors. He found a 10th grader, and he found the 11th grader, and he didn't find a 12th grader. I was in the 12th grade, and my brother was in the 12th grade. Well, we were not twins, but I skipped the 4th grade. So I said to my dad was so disgusted. After knocking on 500 doors, he only found 2 kids. And I told my brother, I said, listen, Dad is so bewildered and upset that he doesn't have a 12th grader. Let you and I go to the all-white school, and we'll be together, we'll graduate together, and Dad will be happy, and things will just work out very well. And my brother looked at me, says, LaVon, I'm so sorry that Dad is upset. And I'm so sorry that Dad did not find a senior to go to Gainesville High. He said, but I'm in the band. I'm in the student council. And I got 3 girlfriends. Why would I leave my 3 girlfriends to go to a school that nobody wants me there? He says, so Dad is going to have to be unhappy because I'm not going. And I said, Phil, we just need to, he says, I'm not going. You can't talk me into it. So I really anguished about it. I slept on it, I prayed on it. I get up on one morning and I said, Dad, here I am, send me. He said, you'll go to, I said, Dad, I'll go. So he said, listen, we can't tell your mom about this right now. He says, we got to plan this strategically so she will know how this is going to be done. So Mom would see Dad and I talking, and every time she would come around, we changed the subject. So Mom said, I smell a rat. And if you think LaVon is gonna go to this all-white school, Gainesville High, you got another thought coming. She is not gonna go. And so my dad's job was to convince my mom that I should go to Gainesville High. And he said to my mom, I cannot ask other parents to do what I'm not willing to do myself. I have to let her go. She has to go. So Dad reluctantly said, Mother reluctantly said, yes, okay, she can go. But the first time there's a problem, I'm gonna pull her out of there. Well, 3 weeks before school is to start, the FBI comes to the house. And the FBI says that they have surveyed Gainesville, and Gainesville is not ready for integration. So they were asking Dad if he could postpone this until about 3 to 5 years when Gainesville was ready for it. And Dad's response was, the Supreme Court in 1954 put this in the law. This is 1964. You had 10 years and you did nothing. No, I'm not postponing anything. So I had to agree, and my dad had to agree to certain things in order for the FBI to be satisfied. The first thing, Dad had to agree that he would take all three of us to school every day and pick all three of us up. And Dad said he would do that. And I had to agree as a senior that I would not participate in anything. I could not go to any football, basketball games, and I could not do anything where the kids would congregate. I had to make sure that I would not participate. And I had to agree to that. Well, by this time, my mom is in a no mood all over again. She's saying, no, this looks like it's going to be difficult. So my dad worked on her until maybe 2 days before school. She was saying yes again. So the day before school, I go to sleep, and I really could not sleep. I just wondered what the next day would be like. I got up very early that morning. I was ready 2 hours ahead of time to go to school. Mom got up, fixed me a big breakfast, but I was so nervous, I just took some orange juice. And Mom said to me, she says, LaVon, this would probably be the hardest job that you have to do in your entire life. You're going to go to school, and more than likely, they will not be nice to you. And what I want you to do is to kill them with kindness. They're not going to be kind to you, but you be kind to them. Just kill them with kindness. She gave me a prayer. I took my orange juice. The other 2 students are with me. We get ready to go to school. The Gainesville Police Department brings 2 police cars, one in the front, one in the back, to escort us to school. We get to the school. Dad prays for us, tells us to have a good day. The 10th grader goes to her class. The 11th grader goes to his class. And I proceed to go to my class. And as I walk to go to my class, I'm surrounded by about 7 white kids. And they say to me, why are you here? We don't want you here. We are going to make your life hell if you stay here. We don't want your picture in our yearbook. We don't want the fact that you're going to ruin our graduation with a black person in our class. You need to leave now or accept the consequences. They then spit on me, called me the N-word, and I proceeded to go to my class. I went and I sat on the first row. And when I sat on the first row, the entire class got up and they went on the other side. And the teacher says, why are you standing? And they said in unison, we'd rather stand than sit by a nigger. So she says, you don't have to sit by her. You can just continue to stand. So every day I went to class, I could expect in my seat, I would find very nasty notes. I would find tacks in the seat. Under the seat, I would find dead roaches, dead snakes, and I would find that every day. And the hardest time of any day for me was to try to navigate how I would go to the bathroom. I realized that if I tried to go to the bathroom when the classes were changing, that I probably would be attacked in the bathroom. So I'd go to the class, ask for a pass, run to the bathroom, and then run back. So then my strategy was I had to really I had to make sure that my liquid intake was minimal so I would not have to go to the restroom but once a day. So I would not have any water or have anything, any juices, so that I could make sure that I could only have to go to the restroom one day. I lived that year in total isolation. I really couldn't tell my brother what was happening because if I did, he would tell my mom and my dad, and then things would not be well for me. And the students that I left in the all-black school, I lost them as friends because they felt that I was better than them because I was going to the white school. So it was a total year of isolation. I didn't tell the 11th grader or the 10th grader what was happening to me because I didn't want to discourage them. My class took a pact that they would not make history by letting me be the first graduate of Gainesville High School. So anything that they could do to me, they would do it to me. The teachers were very unkind to me. One of my teachers for my English class, whatever I turned in, she just put an F on it. So my dad said, well, I know what we'll do. The next time you have to do a presentation or write something, I'm going to give it to the head of the English department at the University of Florida. He's my friend. I'm going to let him edit your paper first. He edited my paper. I turned it in. It still had an F on it. So when my dad and I had a conference with the teacher and the principal said to him, he says, my teacher said it was an F, so we aren't here to discuss it. It's just an F paper. When I transferred, I had about a 3.8 average, but if they could have stopped me from graduation by giving me poor grades, they would have done so. But my average was too high. They could not stop me. Well, to think things could not get any worse, one day I go to school, and I am attacked by 6 white boys. They beat me unmercifully, and I was saved by the bell, because when the bell rang, everybody had to pass by me. I was on the ground, I was bleeding profusely, and nobody stopped to help me at all. I waited till everybody had left. I stumbled in the principal's office, and I told the principal I had been attacked. And the principal said, how do I know you didn't come from home like that? I didn't see anybody attack you. And if by chance they did, you ought to know you're not welcome, and you need to go back to where you belong. I said, well, may I use the phone to call my dad? He said, no, you can't use the phone. This is not a public phone. So I stumbled across the street. During those times, they had pay telephones, and you'd go into a booth, a red booth, and you'd put a dime in the phone, and you make a phone call. So I took my dime, and I called my dad, told him that I had been attacked, and Dad came and picked me up. Took me to the only black doctor that was in Gainesville. And the doctor says, you look pretty bad. They have really beaten you up. He says, I suggest that you stay home from school for a while. So the doctor stitched me up. I have stitches from the front to the back of my head from that incident of being beaten at school. I went home, I told Dad, I said, Dad, I'm not going back. He said, well, you don't have to go back. I said, I just can't go back. So I went home, stayed home about 4 or 5 days. And I told Dad, I said, Dad, take me back to school. He said, I thought you weren't going back there. I was ready to take you back to the all-black school. I said, Dad, if I don't go back to school, They win, I lose. And I can't afford to let them win. I go back to school, they redouble their efforts. They put more tax and more rats and roaches and snakes under there. And the rumor was all around school, well, we didn't kill her yet, but we're gonna get her at graduation. So here it is, time for graduation. And my brother and my graduation's on the same day. So I tell my parents, let's go to Phil's graduation and let's not worry about my graduation. And my mom said, all the hell you been through, no, you gonna graduate. I was so afraid because I didn't want to tell my parents about all the threats and all the letters that I had gotten that they were gonna kill me at graduation. So my brother's graduation, my mother goes to, and my dad goes to my graduation, which is at the University of Florida. When we get to the University of Florida, policemen are everywhere. And my assumption is that they have heard about the rumor, or they're there because this is the first graduation of a black person at the white school, and they don't want any problems at the University of Florida. So I just stayed in the car, and Dad says, get up. You got to go and get in the line with all of the other students. I was so afraid, but I then said, I don't think that they'll try something with all of these policemen here. So I got in the car, I got in the line, and I was able to walk on the stage with no incident happening. And I became the first one to graduate from Gainesville High School in 1965. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks so much. So I decided, after years had passed by, I decided that, I want to tell my story, but I want to tell it to children. So I wrote a children's book. I was not interested in writing a children's book initially, but when I told my story at a school, and a kid said to me, several of them, why don't you write a children's book so that children will know your story? So I wrote the book for children. That story that I have just given you, I cannot tell in the public school systems anywhere in the state of Florida because they have passed a law that you cannot tell anything about history that makes anybody uncomfortable. So because of the story being a true story, I decided to put my book in a story so that I can let children know that they can be bold, they can be beautiful, they can be brave, and they can be successful. So I did that because I want, long when I'm dead and gone, I want generations that will follow to know that there was somebody there that sacrificed a lot so life would be better for them. I thank you for listening. God bless you.